You think I need your approval to be great? Keep shouting, Skip. But remember this moment. You'll owe your fame to me. The studio went silent. Cameras kept rolling, but for a second, time froze. Skip Bayless blinked, caught between a smirk and a wince. This wasn't the usual back-and-forth banter. LeBron James wasn't smiling. He wasn't playing along. He was staring straight through Skip, words measured, voice like steel dipped in calm fire. You've made a living talking about me, LeBron continued, his tone steady, deliberate. Every missed shot. The day after the viral explosion, Skip Bayless walked into the studio greeted like a rock star. Applause from interns, smirks from executives, emails from advertisers. His name was everywhere. But inside, Skip felt hollow. He stood by the glass window of his office, watching the city buzz below. The screen behind him replayed the moment on loop, LeBron's eyes piercing through him, that voice echoing. You don't define greatness, Skip, but I just defined your career. And somehow he had. Skip's producer stormed in, grinning. We're up 213% overnight. ESPN's pissed. Twitter sours. You just went nuclear, man. Skip forced a smile, but his fingers twitched. He knew what had happened. LeBron hadn't just humiliated him. He had given him the biggest rating spike of his career. The network noticed too. Within 48 hours, a new segment was added, the LeBron Watch. Every show opened with a debate about him. Every episode dissected LeBron's interviews, social media posts, body language, even his walk into games. Skip had become, officially, the LeBron antagonist. Not a critic, a shadow. But deep down, something inside Skip itched. He wasn't always like this. There was a time he cared about stories, about truth. Now he was profiting off provocation. In the face of that provocation was a man who had just shattered him on national television. LeBron, meanwhile, refused to address it further. Not in interviews, not in tweets, not even in private circles. He moved on, but his silence became its own wildfire. Every week he stayed quiet. Skip's team found new ways to bait him. Skip versus The King, round 2. LeBron still won't respond. Is he running? Skip says, I made you relevant. Back at home, LeBron's wife Savannah turned off the TV one night. Their kids were watching. Why is that man always talking about you? Bryce asked, frowning. LeBron didn't answer. Not right away. He leaned back, rubbed his face. Because I gave him something to talk about, he said, quietly. The truth stung. The more he ignored Skip, the bigger Skip got. The man was making a career out of shadows, LeBron's shadow. Back at the studio, Skip sat alone in the dressing room, staring at his own reflection. The lights above flickered slightly. His voice low, almost like he was afraid someone would hear. Is this journalism? Or am I just baiting a king for views? He didn't have the answer, but he knew the showrunners were pushing for more. And then came the memo. LeBron's team had agreed to another segment. Another face-off. Live. No edits. Just conversation. The countdown had begun. The first clash made Skip famous. But the second one? It might break them both. The studio lights were blinding, but Skip Bayless had never felt this exposed. His ratings were higher than ever, but so was the backlash. Every comment, every post, every DM started to feel like a mirror. You build a career off one man's name. You're not a journalist. You're an echo of hate. At first, Skip brushed it off. Trolls. Haters. Noise. But then it came from inside the industry. Reporters he once mentored. Writers he once inspired. Even his co-host paused more often now before nodding. Skip couldn't shake the feeling. He was becoming the villain in a story he thought he controlled. Meanwhile, LeBron James stayed silent. Not out of fear, but purpose. While the world screamed around him, he turned inward. One evening, LeBron was home, watching TV with his sons. Bryce leaned in, remote in hand, paused the screen where Skip was mid-rant. Why does that man hate you? He asked. LeBron's heart stopped. For years, he'd taken a high road, let the noise pass. But in that moment, in his own living room, with his child staring up at him, it all broke. He got up quietly, walked into his office, shut the door. No interviews, no press releases, just a pen, paper, and years of swallowed words. I don't hate you, Skip, but I know what you've done. You made my name a currency for your brand. You questioned my heart, my family, my worth. And I took it for the game, for the peace. But tonight, my son looked at me with pain in his eyes, and I finally understood. This isn't just TV anymore. It's poison in the air, and I won't be silent forever. He folded the letter, didn't sign it, didn't send it, just sealed it in an envelope. But Maverick Carter saw it. I know where this needs to go, he said softly. 2 days later, Skip Bayless received a plain package. No return address. Just a letter inside, typed clean, sharp, devastating. He sat alone in his dressing room. Lights dimmed. He read every word aloud. Slowly, my son looked at me with pain in his eyes. His voice cracked. He stopped reading, closed his eyes. He thought of his early days, sleeping in newsrooms, chasing interviews, believing in truth. Back then, he wanted to tell stories that mattered. Now, he was the story people wanted canceled. Skip put the letter down and stared at the wall for a long, long time. In that silence, he realized he wasn't just talking about LeBron James anymore. He was hiding from himself. And that kind of silence, it's the loudest kind there is. It had been exactly 1 year since the first confrontation. The show's anniversary was approaching, and the network knew what would sell. LeBron versus Skip. 1 year later, the promos ran with fire. Social media lit up with countdowns. It felt like a pay-per-view event. But this time, LeBron agreed on one condition. No scripts, no questions, no prep. Just truth. Skip didn't like it. Not because he feared the camera, but because deep inside, he feared what would come out when there was nothing to hide behind. But he agreed. Maybe because he was tired of the mask. Maybe because he owed it to LeBron, to himself. The day arrived. The studio was quieter than usual. No crowd. Just 2 chairs, 1 camera, and a world watching live. Skip opened first, voice calculated. We're here a year later. Same table. Same 2 men. But a lot has changed. LeBron didn't blink. Has it? Skip shifted. I've built my life around calling the game as I see it. And I've seen greatness, but I've also seen weakness, he said, attempting to take control. LeBron leaned forward, his voice calm but cutting. You didn't see anything, Skip. You sold a version of me that fit your ratings. You built a brand out of tearing me down. Every loss, every missed shot, every moment you twisted into weakness. The silence was suffocating. You cashed in on hate, LeBron continued, and I let you. I thought if I kept playing, kept winning, your noise would fade. But I was wrong. I gave you the best years of my life, and you turned them into punchlines. Skip's mouth was dry. Words didn't come easily now. His voice cracked for the first time on air. I was empty, and you gave me purpose, he said slowly, his eyes flickering. By hating you. The words hung in the air. There was no reaction, no music, just truth. LeBron looked at him, not as a rival, not even as a man in disagreement, but as someone who had finally removed the mask. Maybe now, LeBron said softly, you can find purpose by respecting people. The studio didn't cheer. It didn't need to. Across millions of screens, the audience sat frozen. Because this wasn't sports commentary anymore. This was 2 men unraveling what media had made them. Skip reached for his glass of water, but didn't drink. He placed it back, hands shaking slightly. I'm sorry, he whispered. The camera stayed on both of them. No commercial. No host to shift the mood. Just Skip, who had chased headlines his whole life, finally sitting still in the one moment that needed no script. And LeBron, the man who never needed a mic to be heard, had just ended a war with a sentence. Not for vengeance, but for closure. The broadcast ended with no applause. No dramatic outro. Just silence. But outside that studio, the world was anything but quiet. Clips of Skip Bayless's apology spread like wildfire. Sports media outlets rewrote headlines. Fans flooded the internet with reactions, some shocked, others moved. Celebrities, athletes, journalists, even Skip's harshest critics paused to say, that was real. The next morning, Skip didn't show up for work. By noon, the news broke. Skip Bayless stepping down as host of First Take Live. No scandal, no firing, just stepping away. In a statement, he wrote, for years, I thought I was calling the game. But somewhere along the way, I started calling pain. I don't regret the work, but I regret the harm. It's time I tell stories that heal, not hurt. Weeks later, a new podcast launched. Unscripted with Skip Bayless. No hot takes. No debates. Just long, uncomfortable conversations about truth, ethics, and the damage behind performance media. His first guest? A retired coach who once said Skip ruined careers. The second? A young journalist who once grew up idolizing Skip, only to lose faith in him. Until that final show. Meanwhile, LeBron said nothing. No tweets. No interviews. No reflections. He had moved on. But the silence this time didn't sting. It spoke louder than any statement ever could. He had said what needed to be said. And more importantly, he had ended the war without burning the man who waged it. The world began to see LeBron in a different light. Not just as a player, but a mirror to the media, to fans, to the way we consume greatness. Months passed. A young broadcaster wrote an op-ed that went viral. LeBron gave Skip his platform. Then he gave him his piece. That's what greatness looks like. It was titled, How LeBron Built Skip's Career, then Ended It with Grace. Years later, in a quiet office far from the bright lights of television, Skip Bayless now sat behind a modest desk, mentoring interns and young voices. He no longer taught them how to argue. He taught them how to listen. A black and white photo sat on the corner of his desk. LeBron James mid-game, eyes focused, sweat falling. Not a trophy, not a memory, a reminder. Across the country, in Los Angeles, LeBron stood before a crowd at his retirement press conference. A reporter raised the final question. What do you think of Skip Bayless now? LeBron paused, smiled, not wide but deep. He finally told a true story, his own, and with that, he walked away. No mic drop, no feud reignited, just a legacy sealed, not by the games he played, but by the truth he stood for.